Well, we're on the set of the Battle of Bisesero, which is a full-length feature film about the resistance that took place in the Bisesero Hills during the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi. Our crew is Pan-African. Our director is Mandela Dube from South Africa, who made classics like The Silverton Siege and Kalushi. And our cast is largely Rwandan. We have a lead actor, Wale Ojo, from Nigeria. We have Umalisa Gahiga, who is a Rwandan who lives in London. We have Isabel Cabano, who many people know so well here and like. And Andy Bumunto is also in our cast. And our crew is some mix of South African, a couple of Kenyan, but largely Rwandan. And I think the point of the groundbreaking part of this production is it's a large production. It's an international in the sense that it's Pan-African. And I felt that that was important because just as I did in the 600, I didn't want to hear any outside voices or have outside influences on Africans should be telling their own stories. So the writers were African, the producers here are from Rwandan, and the directors from South Africa. And I feel like that is the best way to get closer to an authentic portrayal of a story of this importance about Africa. Because when the Western companies come in, and I know I'm from the West, but bear with me, when Western companies come in and they do stories about Rwanda especially, they miss the mark. They're not authentic. They actually put victims in the background, and they put Westerners in the foreground for no good reason, because it was not like that at all. So the great thing about this story is that it's an entirely African story until the very end when the French soldiers show up.
How do I get onto this project is that the producer Richard Hall and I have a common friend by the name of Wale Ojo, who's an actor out of Nigeria. And Wale had reached out to me to say, hey, you have to read this project, you have to read the script. It's a very, very compelling story. I think someone like you would like it. This was, I'm talking 3-4 years ago, but our schedules were just not aligning, right? Because you get busy with that, this and that, and then, you know, issues like the finance getting in place and so forth. The script wasn't at the right place and so forth. So that really is when I got introduced to it. It's a few years back. And then there was actually a period, a lull of it just went quiet, and I got busy with other things. And then Wale called me and said, listen, remember the project I was telling you about in Rwanda? It must happen. It has to happen this year. Stop what you're doing. You have to focus. I'm like, I can't. I'm busy with this. Like, I don't care. Block, period, where you make this film. Because this story is important. And I read the script, and the script had gotten better. And I said, oh, I really like this, you know. And then I gave my input. We worked on some characters on the story. And then they flew me over with the team. And then we did a workshop with students here, which was amazing. Really, really, really cool. And then we came to Bisesero, and really things started happening. It just became a snowball. I also felt, you know, welcomed home. They always say, hey, welcome back home. I really, really felt like I'm being welcomed home. And I said, I have to do this. I strongly believe when we align as human beings to commit to tell something that it is important, everything else comes into place. So that's how I got into it. It was a 3-4 year process, but eventually I got into it, and then here we are. I don't get involved in something that I don't feel strongly about to tell. I just don't do it. No matter how much I try to do a project or a story that I don't feel right, it just won't happen. No matter how much I try, you know. So we tell stories from the heart. And my heart started feeling warmly towards telling the story and going to Bisesero and meeting the true characters or who are portrayed in the film, like Epiphany, and reading about, and just being with her. Her energy started talking to me, And I was in tears. I mean, when we went to Bisesero, to the World Heritage Site that is now, I started getting more into the story. I felt compelled. I felt it's my responsibility as a storyteller to tell the story and tell its story well, to the best of my ability. It just became, the right team came together. I brought my experience of telling stories of this nature. It's an unsung hero story, and it's a story of resistance. In this one particular area on this hill, there were folks that resisted. So it's their story being told from a point of view of one of the survivors, Epiphany. So that spoke to me. I mean, if you look at the track record of the stories of films that I've made, I've always told the unsung hero's story. And I've always wanted to find a story where it's told from a female point of view. And Epiphany's story spoke to me very closely. And then we went to town. We started working on it and started shaping the script, and with Joel, the script writer, Joel Karakesi, and we got notes given back. And then I reached out to my son as well, who's also a writer. I was like, hey, this is an important story. You have to stop whatever you're doing. It's a responsibility. We have to tell a story. And he's a writer, and he collaborated with Joel. And then it starts becoming, his name is Nkosinati, it started becoming a collaboration. I love collaborating with people of like mind. So it just started becoming it's a responsibility. It's more than just making a film, right? It's a responsibility.
My character is Epiphany. I'd say she's the heart of this story. The story is told through the family of Birara, and she's his daughter. She was 17 years old at the time, so she's a great lens through which the audience can see the horrors that happened in Bisesero from such a young mind. So the first half of the movie introduces you to who she is. She goes through a lot of discrimination at school, which a lot of Tutsis did at the time. But she faces it with a lot of dignity and a lot of resilience because of the comfort and shelter she found with her family. We see throughout the movie that comfort and that support system dwindle and dwindle and dwindle. And yes, so the story is told through her eyes, because you see how a child's environment can completely, impact their spirit, if not destroy their spirit. But overall, the story is about the people of Bisesero. She's just the eyes through which the audience can discover them. At this point, I'd say before the moment that changes everything, she's seen that she's faced a lot of discrimination at school from her peers, from her teachers, from her community. But she's not faced violence, and she's not seen violence, and you can tell through some of her carelessness, some of her naivete, that she's not been through quite what her parents have been through, which makes her naive, which a child should be, a teenager should be, and she allows herself to be that until she simply can't anymore. Because for her to face what she faces later on, you have to change yourself and you have to fortify yourself, which is what she does. So you see her grow up very, very quickly throughout the story. At first I think I was a bit in denial of how hard it would be to do this role, because I think especially people of my generation, I was born 4 years after the genocide. I always thought it's so much easier to hear about it, it's so much easier to hear about it, to play it, because this is a reality I'm choosing. They call cut and action, and then I can go home in a safe environment. But I quickly realized as I was preparing this character that it would be very detrimental to deny myself of the emotional journey that this would take me on, because it's a real story, but I'm also Rwandan, so I know this is the story of so much of my family, and I see my grandmother in this character. I've met Epiphany, she's still alive, she's only 49 years old. So as an actor, I have tools to get myself in and out, but between action and cut, I have to believe that these are real events, that these are real people, that this is my family, I think that's the only way to give justice to this story. I can't distance myself from it. Otherwise, I wouldn't give it my all. And I've told myself when I started this role that I will give it 110% because this story deserves that. In terms of character, I especially in the first half, in her playfulness, in her carelessness, in her freedom, I put me into it because I have that privilege. But I've also made sure to highlight to myself how we're similar and how we're different. How we're different is also, you know, in terms of my posture, in terms of my voice. She's 10 years younger than me. In terms of how I interact with others. But and also that those differences help me come back to myself. I can regain Melissa's posture and go home to myself. But I can't. I would be lying if I said that it doesn't affect me, and it stays with me. A few hours afterwards, I speak to my own family. I think of the real Epiphany and who she is now, where she is now. She's safe and she has children, and Rwanda is safe. So the reality of where we are now, outside of action and cuts, gives me a lot of peace of mind. By putting 110%, and I know I'm certainly not the only one who is, we want to replace stories like Hotel Rwanda, because right now if I speak to people outside of this country, that's their idea of Rwanda. That's the only media they've seen about Rwanda. And so it's so easy, especially now, for people to be misinformed. I'm an actor because, to me, film has been the most impactful way for me to shape my view of the world, my view of other culture, other people that I don't have access to. I think film is extremely important, and it's my medium. It's how I know to contribute to Rwanda. I think every young Rwandan, especially in my generation, is trying to find their way to give back to the country. I found mine, and it's movies like this that tell the truth, that are authentic, that have Rwandans making it, and Rwandans behind the scene to tell you what's authentic, what's not authentic. That's how we choose to give back. I hope this movie is seen by millions and replaces Hotel Rwanda. I will keep saying it, that movie is nonsense. But this is real. We spoke to the people who went through this. We spoke to Epiphany, we spoke to Marcel, we went to Bisesero. Most of the team has gone to speak to them. It's not a documentary, it's a movie, but it's telling their story in the best way we can, in the most impactful way we can. Yes, that's what film can do. It's
an important story to tell because, very few people survived from that hill. As most people know, there were 50,000 people estimated that came seeking protection from Aminadabu Barara, who had just a great reputation as being a strong pillar of the community. And they organized, he and his family and his lieutenants, they organized a defense against a persistent attack to wipe them out. And at first, his defense was very successful. It was costly, but it was successful. They were fighting sticks and stones and strategy against machetes and guns. And they prevailed for the first 2 or 3 weeks. Then there was sort of a truce because the militia didn't know how they should approach this. And after a couple more weeks, their numbers, some of their defenders started looking for food and stuff like that. And all of a sudden, a huge attack came on the mountain, aided by, heavier weapons, the XFAR army, possibly the French army for all we know. And that proved to be devastating. So this is the story. Barara had, I believe, 4 children who survived. So telling the story from the point of view of his children made it easier for us to research all the nuts and bolts of the story.
Inkuru turi gukora ahangaha muri film yitwa Battle of Bisesero, akaba ari film ivuga ku buzima bw'abasesero. Cyane cyane igoroka ku bwicanyi bwabaye muri jenoside yakorewe abatutsi mu Bisesero, kuri iyo misozi yose yaba Bisesero n'imisozi yari yegereye Bisesero, za Gishyita muri Muyira, ariko cyane cyane twibanda ku butwari bw'abasesero. Aho bavuze bati ntabwo dushobora gupfa duteza amajosi uko babivugaga, n'ubundi twatewe tugomba kwirwanaho. Ubwo rero abasaza bari babakuriye harimo cyane cyane uwitwaga Birara n'umuhungu we Nzigira n'abandi bagabo icyo gihe bari bari kumwe ba Gakoko n'abandi ba Aroni. Ni benshi cyane bavuze bati tugomba kugerageza tukirwanaho, tukarwana ku baturage bacu, tukarwana ku bana bacu, abagore bacu, tukareba ko twarokoka. Nubwo rero haguye imbaga nini cyane kuko nyuma kurikije amateka n'ubundi ntibyababujije kwasiga ubuzima, ariko byibuze ubwo butwari hari abo bwarokoye. Niyo mpamvu rero turi hano kugira ngo tubibuke, tubahereze icyo cyubahiro, ariko nkatwe nk'abanyarwanda tunivugire amateka yacu. Ntabwo dushobora gutegereza ko abavuye imuhana baza bakavuga amateka yacu kandi ari twe yabayeho. Rero niyo mpamvu turi aha kugira ngo tuyerekane mu buryo kuri ino shoro bwa filime. Jewe rero muri iyi filime nkaba nzakina ndi Nzigira uwo muhungu wa Birara. Nzigira rero akaba yari umusore icyo gihe uri mu kigero cy'imyaka 28, 29, ariko akaba nubwo wenda imyaka icyo gihe wumva yari umusore, ariko yari yarageze kuri byinshi. Yiteguraga gushaka, yiteguraga kubaka. Icyo gihe rero jenoside ibaye, biba ngombwa ko afatanya na se n'abo bagabo bandi, ariko nta nubwo n'abagabo gusa, ahubwo n'abana n'abagore, mu buryo bwose bushoboka, uko birwanagaho bakoresheje inkoni, amabuye, ibyo bari bafite kuri uwo musozi. Ku muntu uzi umusozi wa Bisesero abizi ko habura ubuye cyane. Nzigira rero numva inkuru ye bwa mbere, nkaganira n'abavandimwe be, kumumenya byonyine byari ishema kuri njye kuba ngiye kusa nkaho muri iyi filime nongera kumuha ubuzima. Bavuga ku kuntu yari imfura, ukuntu yakundaga abantu, ndetse kandi n'uburyo ki yitabye Imana, ko yari yagiye gukiza abana icyo gihe bari kwicwa. So rero ntabwo ari gusa filime, ahubwo ni no kongera kwiyibutsa ubutwari bugomba kuranga umuntu mu gihe waba uri mu kaga, aho ugomba kwitanga ukarengera n'abandi, ntutume ikibi kiganza. Ubwo rero nkanjye wenda ndi umuntu ku ruhande, byabaye ngombwa ko nsobanukirwa no kurushaho ko amateka nari nyazi yabereye mu Bisesero, ariko byabaye ngombwa ko nanjye nsobanukirwa kurushaho ese byari bimeze bite. Niyo mpamvu rero mu mbere twabanje guhura n'iyo miryango twaganira, hanyuma rero kugira ngo tunazane ukuri guhagije muri iyi filime. Ubwo rero guhuza yaba jewe na Nzigira, ntekereza ko nanjye byampaye umukoro wo kongera kwishakamo ubwo butwari bwamuranze icyo gihe.
Sense of community definitely will come across in the film. Yeah. We highlight the fact that, and it's all based on our historical research that we've been doing with the family for years. You know, Barara and his Hutu neighbors would often exchange cows. And we have the cow ceremony is, you know, was part of the community. And it was part of a way to kind of bond the community, because traditionally that would be a bond that you could never break. Unfortunately, even in '94, it broke, but not completely. There were definitely people in the community who are not Tutsi who were trying to help. We have a character in the movie who tries to bring food up to the hill because he knows that the people don't have any food. We have a shopkeeper who's a friend of the family who ends up on the hill and perishes. So there are elements of that. But a lot of, as we know, a lot of it was very local. So even the militia that would come initially were local, and then they recruited additional militia from other communities. So it was no longer a community event. It became a provincial event or something larger, especially because they called a truce after 2 or 3 weeks, and then they pulled in people who were strangers to finish the fight.
Amahoro, nitwa Lali Sangano, natanguye n'iyi production ya Bisesero muri workshop. Je nayijemo nk'umuntu ashaka kwiga ibintu bya directing kuko yari workshop ya directing na acting. Nyuma y'igihe barambwira ko bagiye gutangura film, barambwira yuko bishoboka ko nshobora kuronka internship muri directing. I was super happy. That was a very great news for me kubera ko ni ryambere no bana rindonse a big opportunity mu gukora iyo ako kazi ka directing. Hagati aho nani bagiye kuvuga ko bigeze kugira barakoze casting. Muri casting of course naraje kubera ko nari nshaka to be part of this production. Hanyuma nza kwisanga nanje ndi muri abo babaye cast. My character yitwa Tasiana. Tasiana, she's an older sister to Epiphany. Epiphany ni main character. Tasiana is 32 years old. She has 2 kids and she's pregnant. She's going to have the 3rd baby. Numuntu jewe ndamudefinisa nka ndavye iyi histoire yose ndamudefinisa nka sinshaka kuvuga umutima ariko nshaka kuvuga nka moteur. Voilà, ndamudefinisa nka moteur émotionnel w'iyi film. Namye mvuga nti igihe cyose kuva ndonse yo role ndiko ndakora kuri role, ndiko ndakora kuri iyo personnage kuva ku ntango kugera ku iherezo kuko uri kurakora role umu personnage wawe uramuhera hasi kugera ku mpera. Rero ndiko ndamukora nabonye ko Tasiana atarimwo muri iyo film. Iyo bari film y'ingwano yo kurwana, ariko Tasiana arimwo hariho kindi kintu kirimwo abanyarwanda muvuga ngo amarangamutima. Harimo ama emotion menshi cyane, harimo kurira cyane, ni ibintu bitari humain, nta buntu burimo. Ndashaka kumuba koko by'ukuri uko ndamubona, uko ndamwibaza, kugira ngo nshobore ku deliveringa who she really is. I am a theater actress before doing cinema. I'm a theater actress kuva muri 2017. Ngo naragize amahirwe yo kuronka amateknike menshi atandukanye kugira ngo nshobore kumenya uko nja muri role nkashobora kuyivamo nkasubira nkitora. Hambavu yo kuba ndi nkora théâtre nize na psychologie kuri université. Ni ukuvuga ngo ivyo byose biramfasha kugira ngo nshobore gukina amahole agoye, aboneka nk'aho agoye, nkashobora kuyakorera ko kuva ku ntango gushaka ku iherezo. Ntibyoroshe, nukuri ntibyoroshe. Nkaje uko ndabigenza umwanya mfata ndiko ndagerageza kuja muri uwo muntu nzokina, ndagerageza ku buryo bw'uko n'inyuma yo gukina mfata wa mwanya nyene kugira ngo ndamuvemwo nsubire kwitora mbejewe. Ico iyi workshop, iyi production, iyi film yose bizozana kuri jewe canke n'abandi tungana canke turiko turakorana, sinzi ko mpava nshobora kubishira mu kintu kimwe. Ni ibintu byinshi cyane, ariko jewe ku gatwe kanje navuze ko nakoze théâtre kuva 2017. Muri iyo parcours yose namye nshaka kuja ku ishuri, namye nshaka kuja gukora, namye nshaka kuja kwiga performing arts. iyi workshop rero n'iyi production iriko iramfasha canke izodufasha n'aba bose turiko turakorana ngaha kwiga ni ishuri practicing no kuba turiko turakora kuko turiko turakora ntituraha ngo twe twicaye gusa bariko arakora. You earn some money but at the same time ukaba uri kuriga. Ivyo nimboneka rimwe ntibishika kenshi, ubundi umuntu ariko ariga atanga amafaranga. Nizera ko ejo canke hirya y'ejo ama production canke ama film canke naho yabara ama theatre ameze nk'uku, ndizera cyane ko hazogera igihe azokorwa 100% natwe hatarinda kuba harimo abandi banyamahanga. Dufise inkuru nyinshi zo kuvuga rero ni sawa haje abanyamahanga, ariko tugomba natwe kwiga kugira ngo dushobore kuba dukora twokora inkuru zacu 100%. Ndavuga 100% baba bakinyi bari muri production, abari byose ivyuma amakamera byose abari twebwe tuba turiko turavyikorera.
Uruhare rwacu rero ntekereza ko rugomba kuba rushingiye ku mpano za buri wese. Ntangiye kuba narabashije kuba nakorana n'iyi team, harimo director Mandla, producer Richard Hall yagiye akora no ku zindi film z'amateka yacu nka The 600. Byampaye icyerekezo cy'uko iki nicyo gihe kugira ngo dutangire gushyira izi mpano zacu cyangwa se buri wese azana ubushobozi bwe kugira ngo aya mateka yacu tuyivugira ari twebwe. Urebye buri gasozi k'u Rwanda cyane cyane kuri aya mateka yerekeranye na jenoside yakorewe abatutsi usanga hari ibintu byinshi byahabereye. Rero ntabwo twagakwiriye gutuma dutegereza bimuhana kugira ngo tubikore, ahubwo ni ahacu kuzana ubushobozi. Buri wese ni mu rwego rwe, yaba mu mpano, yaba se abashoramari, yaba ababasha gutanga ahantu nk'aha ngaha ku buryo umuntu ashobora kukwemerera kuza ahantu nk'aha ngaha hiwe ukahakorera. It has to be a collective effort. Ubwo rero ntekereza ko byari ikintu cyiza kubasha gukorana n'aba bagabo babifitemo ubuzobere, ariko nanone nanjye byampaye umukoro wo gutekereza se nuva aha ngaha n'iki gikurikira, ni gute ushobora nawe gukora ubukangurambaga buhagiye ku buryo mbere na mbere abanyarwanda tugira ubwo butware bwo gutanga amateka yacu, ariko noneho n'abashyira aya mateka mu nkuru zizahoraho nabo bakaza tugahuza kugira ngo aya mateka yacu ntazibagirane.
My first film was very challenging. It's a tragic story about a young man who gets executed by the apartheid regime in South Africa, Solomon Mahlangu. So that was a very painful, tragic story. And I think that was a baptism of fire for me on how to curate narratives and stories of this nature. And I think I've graduated with my next film from there to doing The Silverton Siege, also true story, tragic, and deals with unsung heroes. Language of cinema is very universal, right? And it's energy, you know. So feeling the energy, I don't speak in Rwanda, but when the script is being read, the energy of reading what the actors are saying to each other, that really spoke to me too. And then we did our utmost best to cast actors that come from Rwanda as much as possible. And we had to recast. There were some moments where we felt like we've casted the right person, but then being organic and being rooted in the culture of Rwanda was just not in that actor. And then we had to say, we have to get somebody from here. And it's been magical to collaborate with people from here who speak the language, and they'll even tell you, like, no. In Rwanda, we don't say it that way. We don't do this. We'll do it this way. And then, you know, you have to also, coming as an outsider, to be, when you are embraced in that nature, you have to allow the organic process of storytelling to take fold. So it's been beautiful because there are lots of creatives in Rwanda, and they're very passionate about their story. And being a passionate storyteller, it just became an organic process for me to say, well, Let's tell these stories, and let's tell the story authentically. My belief is that the closer you are to the truth, to the roots, to the facts of what happened, the more credible your story becomes. So that's what I leaned on: the roots, the facts, the research of going to these places, walking where Birara walked, where Epiphany walked, where Eveliana walked, where Marcel, Tatiana, and them walked. Then again, the environment starts becoming a character in the story. The hills of Rwanda starts becoming a character in the story. So it became an organic process. And then it's important as a storyteller that you don't get in the way of yourself in thinking that, no, in that last project I did it this way. In this, each project is going to be different. Each story is going to be different, but it's got a universal message of being able to bring what we call back home Ubuntu, the humanity of these characters, and when we tell these stories, coming from the heart, from the screen to you as the audience member at home, we touch each other with these stories.
What happens when the Westerners come to do stories about outside the West, or even inside their own hometowns? They rarely let facts get in the way of telling a good story. So if there is a way to juice up a story and make it, more, commercial and more popular and more of a thriller, they're going to opt for that because it is a business, and they would rather make millions at the box office than not, right? But they're way too cavalier with the facts, especially on films made about Rwanda in 1994. And for me, it was like super important that we spent years. We must have sent a dozen, visits up here of producers and writers and myself and actors to really understand, the story from the people who are up here as survivors, to really understand what happened through their eyes. And as we put the story together, of course, we had to do storytelling techniques. We had to compress events. Things that took place from 92 to 94 in our film take place in 2 weeks.
I'm a student of history. I've studied African history in the diaspora very, very, for years, over 25 years. And I was taught by some great scholars, Cheikh Anta Diop, Dr. Ben, Dr. Ubenga, who drilled it in our heads, Dr. Jeffries, who drilled it in our heads that you have the responsibility to tell African stories, tell them from the point of view of an African characters as a filmmaker, and it's your responsibility to tell those stories authentically, truthfully, as best as you can. I'm wearing a t-shirt here. It's got this company called Kodak on it. And the manufacturing of celluloid, film celluloid, was originally for Caucasian white skin tones, right? And Kodak did not look at the other demographics when they were manufacturing that. So we have an opportunity as African storytellers in the digital age now of filmmaking to be able to curate narratives where melanin, African, Indian skin tones have a standard, right? So part of what we have done as a team is we've leaned into what we are calling digital melanin cinematography. So we are intentional about curating African melanin skin tones in a respectful way that you have not seen come out of Hollywood. And we did tests, and I'll ask the producers to allow you to see what those tests have resulted in as far as the curation of melanin African skin tones for Bisesero, the film. We are shooting on a camera sensor that we are defaulting to our own settings, our own standards of how those skin tones should be curated.
It's very important that the Rwandan participation in this film is as much as possible. The film community here is growing and eager to learn and makes good films. They just won an award at Cannes which is an amazing accomplishment. And a lot of that crew is working on this film. And it's been 8 years since I made my previous film here, and you can just see the growth and the sophistication that's taking place. We wanted to, develop local technical talent. We want to continue to work with as many Rwandan actors as possible. And they bring something to the film that other actors can't bring. Like, we have a freedom on this set to say little things in Kinyarwanda instead of English on camera. So we're mixing it up. It's still predominantly an English language film, which was a choice we made because we want the world to want to watch this film. But the flavor that we get from local crew and local actors is something that you can't replace. You can't recreate it. It has to come from within. So that's why, of all the people, maybe the 75 people that work on this film, it's more than 90% Rwandans.